So Andy, I have to say you are the most prepared guest I've had on the show. If anybody doubts the professionalism of Mr. Andy Proser here, he's got the questions I was going to ask him. He's printed some potential responses already. So some of these things I might have to refer to because you've done such a good job on these things. Yeah. Seriously, they look great. They're even bold and in typed.
Yeah.
Very professional. So one thing we both are interested in is ethics and its values because we talked about Christianity and informing the values and the ethics for everything you do. It doesn't just have to be a religion, it could be an ethical code, but there needs to be that element of values and beliefs, and you're not just operating for profit. So we started talking, didn't we, about this book, which is 7 Pillars of Servant Leadership.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know what this book is and are looking for a good read for business, can you tell us a little bit about what this book is and kind of what it is? How it's a bit different maybe to your average business book? What did you get from it, do you reckon?
I haven't read it.
You haven't read it? No. Well, I thought he'd read this book. He mentioned, this is live on camera, he mentioned he'd read, no, he didn't say he read this book, but I think he'd heard of this book, no?
Right. No, I was referring to something else actually.
What were you referring to?
A ministry in America that has a very similar name.
So
that's probably why.
Okay.
That's probably why.
Well, these guys are American.
Right.
Well, basically, I'll show you now. This book, 7 Pillars of Servant Leadership, and what it basically says is, if you have values and ethics at a really deep level, you can be a servant and serve all of your customers and all of your clients and your employees, actually as a form of leadership based on gospel values from Christianity. But the really interesting thing is, it's got about 7 examples in here of massive conglomerate businesses that successfully use it, including Starbucks.
Right.
And that was when I read it. That's what I was saying to you off camera. That's why I was like, oh, okay. Because I think there is that element of thinking like, oh yeah, nice guy finished last, and you know, you've got to get down to the profit. But yeah, so maybe you can borrow this.
yeah, that sounds more intriguing now. Now I know what it's about.
Now I know why you were kind of going like, what do you like about that book? I haven't read it. Okay, so can you, because you've told me, and I know it's true, you know, your values inform everything you do. So can you tell us a little bit, because obviously you've got your voluntary work, the fact you're a social enterprise, it's just what you do, isn't it? It's not just a title.
Yeah, I think so. Like Dave and I, we're not out to be millionaires. We just want to earn a reasonable living and give something back. And I also have another hat in that I work for Fusion, which is an Australian organisation, and they're in 17 countries around the world.
17 countries.
Yeah.
Wow.
At one point they had 30 centres that have amalgamated a few now. But
and what do they do and what's their focus?
So youth and community work, but seeing that the need for creating a network of caring adults in the community that will support young people. Because often if you get to age 12 or 13 and you're put in the third set at school and your confidence takes a nosedive.
Yeah.
And you're feeling pressure from the teachers, you're feeling pressure from your parents, and you feel like you failed, and that can be a very fragile age. And so, but if things aren't going well at home, that compounds the problems, and
definitely.
so young people can take a spiral downwards very quickly at that point. So in the old days, you might have the Bobby on the street who would know everyone. Or the youth worker, or just the mums that would hang out on the street, and would care for not just their own kids but the other kids playing out and that kind of stuff. And that sadly has gone. There was a statistic about 2.5 years ago that 9 million people are living in social isolation.
9 million people.
Yeah, in the UK.
Social isolation in the UK. Shocking.
And that for their health, that was more dangerous to their health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
So we have a real problem in that there isn't this network of caring adults for young people as they grow up. And even parents, there's a fascinating study done where they got mums and dads in turn to play intensely with their child, toddler or young baby, and then they'd get them to turn around and ignore them for like 2.5 minutes, which was in a long time.
Yeah.
And the child would try and get their attention and eventually burst into tears.
Yeah.
And they did this with several different parents and children, and the same result then it didn't matter whether it was the mother or the father. And the points that they were making is, well, now that's what parents do with their mobile phones.
That's
you know,
very
1 minute
Yeah.
they're playing with their kids, and then the next minute the phone distracts them,
They're not fully present.
and they're not present.
No.
And so even in the home, there's this isolation that children are experiencing.
That's very insightful.
So, so what Fusion has worked to do over the years is to build up some integration between not just church folk, but also working with police, fire brigades, youth work, secular youth work, and teachers, parents, trying to build a network of caring adults that, as I say, will look out for young people and know what life is like for them. If I was to ask you how many people really know what life is like for you, you don't need to answer, but for most people, it's not very many.
It's not a lot, is it, really?
They actually really know what life's going on.
What's actually going on? Never mind your social media, what's actually going on in
what's
your
life going like for you right now?
Yeah.
And for some people, sadly, the answer is no. Actually, nobody knows what life is like for me.
And if, like, say, if you're an adult, that's one thing, but if you're a 13-year-old, that's a really lonely place to be.
It's a really lonely place to be, and you think, oh, they're growing up now, they don't need that.
Yeah, they've got their phone. Or
they don't need that same attachment.
Yeah, but they do.
But they really do. And that's when they need most support, especially if they're struggling in school.
Definitely.
The confidence has taken a knock.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that is not an easy thing to achieve.
No.
And the challenge we have now is obviously so many parents are working full time, and even working weekends, and so it's tricky for it's tricky to get volunteers to help. But we've seen some amazing projects over the years working with young people, and we've taken on crazy day trips. We used to run them once a month, which was full on.
Wow, that's impressive.
We did that for about 3.5 years of running them every month, and then we did them every other month. And
Well, you saying to me that one of the hardest things is pulling back, isn't it? Because you can get so involved and you want to do so much good.
yeah,
That, like you say, you've been at it for 5 years and you're suddenly like, I'm doing this every month, and I'm running this, I'm doing this. And that can be almost the danger. It's like a numbers game, so like, you haven't got a lot of adults, so the ones that are involved in this, they get worked really hard.
Yeah, they do get worked really hard, and that's hard. For most
Yeah.
charities, they'll find that you've got a core team that work their socks off,
Yeah, of course.
and often don't have enough.
Because they're not doing it for money, are they? Doing it for the love of the people.
Yeah.
So. But it's really perceptive what you said, because there's a book I read by Jonathan Sachs, the rabbi for the United Nations, and he's saying it's kind of the model we've got in this country. It's like a hotel, and it's just we're all in our rooms, but we're just isolated in our little rooms. You have to open the doors and get out in the corridors and have these conversations. And like you say, it used to be on the street corner, it used to be in the pub, or it used to be in the social centre or whatever, and now it's kind of more online, which isn't the same as like us chatting face to face. So that's really perceptive.
Yeah.
So getting to your business, I need to, because again, bring that piece of paper, you've written them down, so I'm going to use them. We've got the values here, and again, I can say, having just as soon as I met you and we started talking, these are not just things written on a page. These are things you live. The fact you're a social enterprise, the fact you're doing the work with Fusion, all those things show that you're living these. So if I mention them all, and then maybe we could look at a couple of them. So honesty, and you've put including admitting when you've stuffed up. So it's not selective honesty.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Because selective honesty, what is that? It's dishonesty.
Of course it is.
And,
It's like saying, how's business? Great.
Yes.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah. And we've all said that.
Yeah.
And we all do it. But actually, if you're going to build trust, you have to be honest, and be especially honest when you make mistakes.
Definitely.
And I haven't met a business yet that doesn't make mistakes. It's how you handle that. And my experience is, if you're honest with a client up front, and obviously suggest ways forward, don't just go, I've stuffed up and that's it, I'm sorry, go and find someone else. Come up with solutions, then they might be upset in the moment, but they'll also respect you for being straight with them.
Well, I'd say so, because there's the element of if you're going to lie or not be honest about small things, how are you going to handle the big things?
Exactly.
So I'd say if you've messed up on something small and they know you've not been honest about it, they'll be thinking, I can't trust that guy.
Yeah.
Or if you have done it well, they'll be like, look how well they handled that. That's impressive. Okay, so we've got honesty.
And just to say, we work with technology, so technology, it will always let you down.
Of course it will.
There's always going to be moments
Mistakes.
where it won't function quite the way you want. You know, we're trying to build websites that work on a Mac and a PC, on a phone, on a 50-inch TV, different browsers at different versions. You know,
And people's expectations these days are so high.
exactly.
They want it to work and
Yeah.
work now with one click in 5 seconds.
Exactly.
Why is it not working?
Yes.
And like you say, if you're not open to making mistakes on that, you're just
Yeah.
going to eternally be frustrated.
Yeah. It takes literally tens of thousands of lines of code to make
Yeah.
a website work
Yeah, yeah.
across all those platforms.
People don't understand that
It works
necessarily.
seamlessly.
So if you're honest about that,
Yeah.
and so say like I was working with your client and I knew the work you're having to put into it, that would help me because then I can make realistic expectations of you. Rather than say, oh, Andy can fix that in 5 minutes. It's like, no, that's going to take Andy 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it honestly works both ways then really,
Yeah, it
you know,
does.
between the client as well.
Exactly.
So I've got quality assurance that your clients are getting the quality they deserve. So that's a
Yeah,
good one.
and so many clients have come to us because the experience of working with other web developers is that the quality's not there.
Because surely it has to be. That is what you go for, isn't it? You don't just go for the experience. You want that high quality thing. So is it not a given, really, that people should be providing that?
It should be an expected thing, yeah. And for us, quality assurance is really important, and sometimes the client will get frustrated that we're not going live on the date that they want, but we'll say, well, do you want it right or do you want it
And
half
again,
right?
that ties back to the honesty thing, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like, look, if you want us to do this properly, you know it's
Yeah.
going to take this, and if you've got that relationship, then...
And my business partner Dave, he's amazingly good at grammar and spelling, and so he'll
right,
go to
Very
the nth
meticulous.
degree to make sure that that's right as well.
Yeah.
And he'll proofread everything, and we don't
Yeah.
charge extra for that because we just think that's the service you should be getting.
That's really good. So
Yeah.
high quality assurance.
Yeah,
not
and
the
especially if
quality.
you're going to print, there's nothing worse than printing 10,000 or something
Typos.
that's got typos in it, and the client will not thank you for it if you
No.
don't spot them.
Absolutely.
They kind of expect it, but they don't ask often because they're too embarrassed to admit that their
That's-
copy may be
That's
riddled.
brilliant. Expect but don't ask.
Yeah.
How much of business falls down that gap? It's
Exactly.
expected, but it's not asked for, so it's not done.
Exactly.
That's massive.
Yeah.
There's so many here, but there's a couple more that are really interesting. I think being a good listener.
Yeah, for me, listening is a value that is really important to me, and it goes back to what I was saying about young people as well. It is, and it applies to business just the same. Is again, it goes back to the fact that how many people know what life is like for you. You know, seek to understand first, and people. I've experienced of other people who are good listeners. They'll say, "I had a fantastic conversation with that guy," and actually, he didn't speak a word, or it was just encouraged them to keep, sharing what they were sharing, not even being a nosy park and directing the conversation, but just helping them speak about what they want to speak about, what they're passionate about or whatever, and people experience listening as an amazing conversation because often they don't get listened to, and it's really sad. But if you listen to a client, you're going to learn a lot more than if you gung ho wanting to force your services or products down the throat and do the hard sales pitch.
See, that's very true, because again, coming back to what you're saying about young people, that works in life as well, doesn't it? Because I've spoken to people, and again, when I used to be a teacher, and parents come asking me for advice, and I'm not a parent, so I try not to, but I'd say, what do they say? If you listen to them. Well, no, because try that maybe. And it's again with that 13-year-old lonely person. You'd start, instead of saying, well, you need to do this, it's like, how are you? And then kind of shut up and listen. And properly listen, like you say, not on your phone, like eye contact and listen. Don't just wait to say your bit. And like sometimes there will be a pause, and that's okay, because that's actually the person taking on board what you said, rather than just like, do you know what I mean, kind of really, really fast.
There's been some research into mental health of young people, and what they've found is a school chaplain can be amazingly effective at helping young people with mental health.
Because they listen.
That's all they do. They're just good listeners. Step into my office at lunchtime, we'll have a chat, and all they'll do is listen to it.
Well,
and because they're trained to
Of
do
course.
that. But we should all have that skill. It just after a while, it can be a healthy habit that you develop.
Yes.
But it's very tempting to interrupt. If I start talking about a holiday destination like Greece or something,
Yeah.
you'll want to talk about your experience of Greece,
course, yeah,
because that's
yeah.
where you've been and you're excited to share because you enjoyed that holiday or whatever. But actually, in that moment, it's pausing and thinking, no, I'm going to carry on listening to that guy. I'm not
Yeah.
going to interrupt him and share my story.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I want to carry on finding out about his world.
Well, it's the old-fashioned phrase, the art of conversation.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's not just an algorithm of conversation.
Yeah,
you know, that
exactly.
works every time we're going to get to this point. It's
Yeah.
like meeting you. We meet on a different day. We have a different conversation.
Yeah.
You know, it's fascinating.
In America, they'll pay a fortune to counsellors, and mostly what a counsellor will do is listen.
Yeah.
Um,
Provide that safe space for you to
yeah.
just kind of get it out.
Yeah.
So, I know that you feel quite strongly about this. So I'm going to ask you about this now. So you've got your values and you've got the way you try to do things, which is to help other people, and it's very admirable, and I respect that. But of course, there's so many examples. You know, people could look at things and like I say, it's expected but not asked for. So many big examples in business recently of people that haven't been doing that. And you know, the GDPR coming in, as we've all seen the memes. You know.
Yeah.
But with that coming in, surely the thinking behind that is to stop this kind of stuff from happening, so that there isn't another massive kind of, oh, we've lost your data, we've lost all this money, this person's been stealing. I mean, can we talk about some of those examples? I mean, you must look, what do you think when you look at those? Do you look at them in despair, or do you look at them and think, that's because you haven't got your values sorted, or what do you think when you look at those?
It's a sweeping statement, but I actually believe that most problems within business can be fixed by fixing the values within that business. If you look at Volkswagen, they weren't being honest about the test results, and they rigged the results for the emissions tests within the electronics, and then later the car would have different emissions completely, and they deceived their customers.
It's very dangerous.
And that is nothing short of a lie. And look at the problems as a result. Massive recall of vehicles, reputation down the drain. You know, that it'll take them years to recover from that, and the profits will reflect that. And you'll find that most, you know, that's another example. That's one example. The banks is another obvious example of mishandling our money and not being honest about the problems they were having themselves of managing the debt. Ryanair, you know, all the hidden costs that people suddenly find are paying another 50 quid because they've not printed out a ticket and all this nonsense. You know, it's not a healthy way to do business, and so I believe that businesses could do a lot by just taking a careful look at their values and fixing what's broken. But the problem is often the problems are right at the top, and the values of the leadership team or the management team, if they're broken, that filters right through the organisation, and then it's very hard to fix that unless you've got someone who's perhaps external to the organisation. And this is why in America actually they take this quite seriously of having mentors that are outside the business that will get alongside the board of directors and
for some accountability.
Yeah, and provide some accountability.
Yeah. Do you think that's something we could benefit from in England?
I think it is. I don't think we do it enough. I think there's a lot of businesses that plough on and actually aren't open to feedback.
Well, it's like a closed feedback loop, isn't it? I think it's really interesting what you're saying, because what's coming to mind is if you're honest, there's that element of allowing things in, and if you're dishonest, you've closed that off and create this little false reality.
Yeah.
And it's only ever going to shrink and going to get worse, because it's almost like stale water. There's nothing fresh coming in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
So it's only ever a matter of time until you get found out. So with Volkswagen, because they created this problem, it was only ever a matter of time until that surfaced. And I think these things that are coming through now are not things that have just happened today. They've been going on for ages, but we're only just kind of finding out now.
Yeah.
Because we have to.
Exactly.
Because that's kind of what happens, isn't it? Eventually you're always going to get found out in business and in life.
That's it. And if you look at, for example, eBay, they were ingenious in providing that feedback loop, so that you've got a bad reference, what they call it, rating,
Yeah.
the eBay seller would work very quickly and fast to fix that, because they saw the value of having a good rating.
It's real feedback. It's valuable feedback.
Yeah.
It's funny you said it, because I was actually, and Steve Smith's going to love this, so I'm sure he's watching. Hi Steve. I was at the Neweg event yesterday. There was a guy called Glenn Elliott, and he was talking about Glassdoor. Do you know about Glassdoor?
No.
I'd never even heard of Glassdoor. Basically, anybody can go on and rate you on this thing called Glassdoor. It's like it's an online rating system. And what he was saying is, it doesn't matter how good you are. So he had this, multi-million-pound business, and all these great 5-star reviews. You'll have 1-star reviews, and it's having the honesty to kind of go, right, this thing isn't going to go away. No matter how good I am no matter how good we are as business people, we're going to have these 1-star ratings. And then it's like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Are you going to say, no, that doesn't happen, that person's an idiot? Or are you going to kind of look at it and go, okay, look at what they said, engage with them and say, I'm sorry about that, can we fix it? Because really it's the feedback that is the one you don't want, is usually the one that you need to work on.
Yes, totally. That's the wake-up call.
So again, it comes back to, like you say, it's honesty.
Yeah.
So these things, these values, I think there can be a misunderstanding a lot with values, especially anything kind of, higher up in terms of like thinking, because it can kind of become, people think it's fluffy, but the whole point of a value is surely it's something to guide your actions, so that you refer to it. It's not just, this is what we are honest, but this is what I do every day.
Yeah.
It informs what you do every day.
Well, exactly. It's the difference between an ideal and a value. An ideal is something that you aspire to do, but actually don't do right now.
Yeah.
But an ideal is something that you live out probably 90% of the time or more.
Mm.
It's instinctive. It's built into you. It's what you live out. And
The value is, sorry. So the ideal is, so the ideal is something you're like, well, it'll be nice one day, but not today. Whereas today you're like, these are my values.
Yeah.
And if you're not living them, they're not really your values.
No. And people will smell the difference. Yeah,
massive. Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I've seen that in people.
Yeah.
And sometimes just looking in their eyes.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm really honest and stuff, and I'm like, you've just lied to me twice
Yeah.
in the first 5 minutes
Yeah.
or whatever. There's that really good phrase that says, how people do anything is how they do everything.
Yes.
So like, it comes back to what you said. If you take care of the small things, and it's like, oh, Andy messed it up, but he was dead honest about that, and I understand that, because he was open to saying this took him time, and I can see the big picture. Then the clients, people, they feel involved, and I think that's something. It's very interesting what you said about young people, and mental health and feeling lonely and stuff like that. There's 7 billion people in this world, and yet we're feeling lonely. So it's not that there's a lack of people; it's a lack of quality communication and listening, would you say? And empathy.
Yeah.
That ability to actually listen to somebody else and say, like, where are you coming from? Forget me for a second, like, I want to know about you.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.